She was the sacrificed Omega. He was the cursed Wolf King. When the threads of fate entwined two shattered souls, a legend of betrayal, redemption, and love began to unfold. 20 years ago, a conspiracy stole his throne and his humanity, trapping him in the body of a beast. 20 years later, a girl abandoned by her pack would become the only key to breaking the curse. But time was running out. The usurper was gathering his forces, and the night of the full moon was fast approaching.
Welcome to Luna's Romance Stories. Read the entire novel in one go. Message or comment to tell me what kind of story you'd like to read. Subscribe to the channel for daily updates. Luna reminds you, the story begins now.
The first rays of dawn filtered through the wooden shutters when Alara Thorne jolted awake from her nightmare. In the dream, a massive silver-gray wolf shadow pursued her, its golden eyes burning with an inhuman intelligence. Her heart pounded wildly, sweat soaking her thin linen nightgown. But the real nightmare was the heavy footsteps echoing from downstairs. Those were her stepfather, Marcus's steps, slow, deliberate, carrying an inescapable sense of doom. Alara sat up, clutching the bedsheets, her knuckles whitening from the grip. She knew that when Marcus approached her room like this, it never brought good news. The door swung open without a knock. Marcus stood in the doorway, his shoulders hunched as if bearing the weight of the world. Behind him loomed her stepmother Vivienne's sharp features, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed satisfaction. "The Alpha summons you." Marcus's voice was barely audible, his gaze avoiding his daughter's eyes. Alara's heart nearly stopped. The Alpha never summoned an Omega like her, the lowest rank in the werewolf pack hierarchy. She was just an orphaned girl with knowledge of herbs, as invisible as air to the important members of the pack. Why? Her voice was steadier than she expected. Vivienne shoved Marcus aside and squeezed into the cramped room. "Don't question the Alpha's wisdom. You've been chosen for the good of the pack. That should be honor enough." The good of the pack. Those words carried absolute weight in werewolf society, overriding personal desires and even survival itself. Alara's stomach churned, a foreboding dread settling over her. In recent weeks, she'd overheard whispers, attacks in the border forests, some massive and brutal creature streaking through the trees at supernatural speeds, leaving behind scenes of carnage. Just last month, 3 warriors had died, their bodies torn apart beyond recognition. They called it the Cursed Wolf, and now the Alpha summoned her. Number the word slipped out before reason could stop it. Marcus flinched. Vivienne's expression darkened beyond anger. "You will obey. The Alpha has selected you as the sacrifice to appease the beast. Your death may buy safety for the rest of us." Sacrifice. The word hung in the air, sucking all the oxygen from the room. Alara's lungs constricted as understanding crashed over her like an icy wave. They would bind her and leave her in the forest as an offering to that terror. She would die alone in fear and pain so others could sleep soundly. "I am your daughter," she said to Marcus, desperately searching for some sign of paternal protection, some indication that he valued her life. Marcus turned away. "You are needed. The Alpha has spoken. You are not his daughter." Vivienne corrected with cruel precision. "You are his burden. Your mother left him nothing of value when she died. This is your purpose, the only contribution you can make. Be grateful you are serving something greater than your worthless self." The venom should have been familiar. Years of enduring Vivienne's resentment. But delivered alongside a death sentence, it cut deeper than ever. Alara thought of her half, sister Lily, only 16, who sometimes offered small kindnesses when her mother wasn't looking. Would Lily mourn her, or would relief at not being chosen outweigh any sorrow? "The ritual begins in an hour," Vivienne said coldly, a smile without warmth curling her lips. "Dress appropriately." They left her, father and stepmother, to prepare for her own execution. Alara sat on the narrow bed, her hands trembling in her lap. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed for her to flee through the window, vanish into the countryside, and never return. But where could she go? An Omega wolf couldn't survive alone. Without a pack, she'd starve or be killed by rogues who could sense her vulnerability from miles away. She had no choice. She never had. With mechanical precision, Alara washed her face with cold water from the basin. She braided her chestnut hair tightly to keep it from her face. The dress she chose was simple, undyed wool that had belonged to her mother. Wearing it felt like armor against what was coming, a reminder that she was the daughter of a strong, kind woman. If she must die, she would die as her mother's child. The walk to the village center passed in a blur. Faces she'd known her whole life peered from doorways and windows, some with pity, most with relief. That fate had chosen someone else. Children she'd once played with now clung to their mother's skirts, wide-eyed at the Omega who would be their salvation. The gathering place was an open square of packed earth, ringed by stones smoothed by centuries of weathering. It seemed the entire pack had assembled. Hundreds of wolves in human form created a wall of bodies and judgment. In the center stood Alpha Aldrich Blackwood, his presence commanding attention without effort. He was about 45, his hair more silver than brown now, but his physique remained imposing, muscles evident beneath his finely tailored tunic. The mark of an alpha was in how others unconsciously gave him space, in the careful neutrality of their expressions when his gaze swept over them. Alara. Aldrich's voice carried across the square, silencing the low murmurs. Come forward. Her feet moved automatically, carrying her through the parting crowd. She felt their stares like physical touches, assessing her worth, weighing whether her death would suffice to pay for their continued survival. When she reached the Alpha, she lowered her eyes in submission, a behavior drilled into every Omega since childhood. Look at me. It wasn't a request. Alara raised her gaze to meet those shrewd gray eyes that had ruled her life since birth. Aldrich studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Do you understand why you've been chosen? Yes, Alpha. What else could she say? That she didn't want to die, that fear clawed at her throat until breathing required conscious effort. Such truths didn't matter. The beast has taken from us, Aldrich continued, raising his voice for all to hear. Warriors, providers, fathers and sons. It grows bolder with each full moon, encroaching further into our territory. We've tried force, we've set traps, nothing stops it. The elders advise that what is needed is not violence, but an offering. Blood has been spilled. Let us see if blood willingly given can appease the creature's rage. Willingly given, as if she'd chosen this, as if standing here awaiting execution was a voluntary sacrifice, rather than coerced obedience enforced by absolute hierarchy and threats of punishment. But Alara understood the performance. Aldrich needed the pack to believe this was noble, that her death meant more than expediency and fear. You serve your pack in this final act, Aldrich said, and he might even believe it. Your name will be remembered. An empty promise. Within a generation, she'd be forgotten, reduced to a cautionary tale to scare children into compliance. But she bowed her head, accepting the lie, because defiance wouldn't change anything. The Alpha's beta, Garrett, stepped forward, a coil of heavy rope in his hands. The binding was ceremonial, meant to prevent her from fleeing once left alone in the forest. They wound the rope around her wrists, pulling it tight, then secured her ankles, leaving enough slack for walking, but not running. The rough fibers bit into her skin. The procession moved slowly toward the forest's edge. Aldrich led, with Garrett and 2 other warriors escorting Alara. The pack followed at a distance, a silent crowd witnessing her fate. She glimpsed Lily among them, tears the young girl struggled to hide streaking her face. Their eyes met briefly, and Alara managed a small smile, forgiving her sister's silent cowardice. The forbidden forest loomed ahead. Ancient trees created a wall of shadows even in daylight. Local legends claimed the woods were cursed, that those who ventured too deep never returned, their spirits trapped forever beneath the canopy. At the boundary, Aldrich raised a hand, halting the group. The warriors pushed Alara to the very edge, positioning her where sunlight ended and darkness began. From here, you walk alone, Aldrich declared. May your sacrifice grant us peace. May the beast be sated and retreat to the depths from whence it came." They untied the ropes from her ankles, granting her the ability to walk to her death. Her wrists remained bound, leaving her helpless against whatever waited in those shadows. Alara glanced back one last time at the pack, at the faces she'd known since childhood, now watching her with varying degrees of pity and relief. Her father stared at the ground. Vivienne's satisfaction was barely masked by a facade of solemn duty. Lily wept openly now, restrained by her mother's tight grip on her arm. No one spoke up for her. No one stepped forward to say this was wrong, that offering one of their own to a monster made them no better than the beast they feared. Alara turned from them, from the pack that had never truly been hers, and stepped into the forbidden forest. The temperature dropped immediately, as if the trees trapped an ancient chill untouched by sunlight. Her footsteps made no sound on the carpet of fallen leaves, centuries of decay creating a path that seemed to absorb noise. Behind her, she heard the pack retreating, returning to their safe homes and ordinary lives. Already forgetting the Omega whose blood bought their security, she kept walking because standing still felt like hastening the inevitable. Her bound hands made balance precarious, forcing her to move carefully to avoid tripping over roots snaking across the forest floor. Then she smelled it. Musk and pine, wild and potent. The scent of a predator. Every instinct inherited from her werewolf blood screamed danger, though her human form couldn't respond with the speed or strength that might save her. Alara froze, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might tear from her ribs. Bushes rustled to her left. Something massive moved in the shadows, circling her with deliberate patience. She caught glimpses of silver-black fur, a body far larger than any natural wolf. The stories hadn't exaggerated. The creature was terrifyingly enormous, easily twice the size of any shifted werewolf she'd seen. It emerged from the trees directly in front of her, and Alara's breath stopped. The wolf was beautiful and terrible. Its fur was the color of storm clouds, silver-gray darkening to near, black along the spine, and it moved with fluid grace despite its size. But what rooted her in place, unable to run or fight, were the eyes. Golden, burning with an intelligence far beyond any animal, locking onto her with an intensity that stripped away all defenses. This was no mindless beast. Whatever this creature was, or had been, consciousness lived behind that predatory gaze. Alara closed her eyes, unable to watch her death approach. She heard it closing in, felt the air shift as the massive head lowered toward her. Hot breath ghosted over her face and throat, scenting her as she had scented it. Any moment now, teeth would clamp on her neck. It had to be quick. It must be quick. The wolf nuzzled along her jaw, down to where her pulse thrummed wildly at the base of her throat. She waited for the fatal bite, but it didn't come. Instead, a low rumble built in the creature's chest. Not quite a growl, something deeper, more complex. The sound vibrated through her body, raising goosebumps on her arms despite no real chill. Then, impossibly, the wolf backed away. Alara's eyes snapped open in shock. The massive beast was retreating, stepping back, its gaze still locked on her face. Something unnamed flickered in those golden eyes. Something that seemed out of place in a beast driven only to kill. Confusion, recognition. Before she could process what was happening, the wolf turned and vanished into the forest, leaving her standing alone, alive and utterly bewildered. Chapter 2. Stone and Shadow. Alara stood for a long time after the wolf vanished, her mind struggling to process what hadn't happened. She was alive. The realization came slowly, like blood returning to a sleeping limb, bringing a tingling relief laced with confusion. Her bound hands trembled as she looked down at them, half expecting to see claw marks or blood. Nothing, not even a scratch. Why had it spared her? The question spun in her thoughts, finding no purchase. Monsters didn't show mercy. Beasts didn't turn from easy prey. Yet this wolf had done just that. Looked at her with those impossible golden eyes and chosen to walk away. The memory of that gaze sent a shiver through her unrelated to the cold. Intelligence lived behind it. unsettlingly close to human awareness, despite the animal form. The forest around her held an unnatural silence, as if holding its breath. Alara was acutely aware that standing still made her vulnerable. Just because the wolf hadn't killed her immediately didn't mean it wouldn't return. Perhaps it was toying with her, a cruel instinct, letting fear ripen before the final strike. The thought propelled her into motion, forcing her legs to move despite the tremor. She needed shelter, some defensible place where she could rest and think without being exposed on all sides. Her bound hands complicated everything, turning even simple movements into frustrating exercises in clumsiness. She tried gnawing at the knots with her teeth, but the binders knew their craft. The ropes held firm, cutting deeper into her wrists with each futile attempt. Moving deeper into the forest felt counterintuitive, but returning to the edge where her pack had abandoned her seemed even more foolish. They wouldn't welcome her back, if anything. Her survival would be seen as a failure. Proof she hadn't fulfilled her purpose. Better to press forward, hoping to find a cave or dense thicket that could offer minimal protection. How long she walked, Alara couldn't guess. Time behaved strangely here, stretching and contracting without pattern. But eventually, the trees ahead thinned, revealing a clearing that shouldn't exist. She approached warily, all senses alert for signs of danger. The sight that emerged from the underbrush stole her breath. Ruins scattered the clearing, aunts' grand stone structures now reclaimed by nature. Vines climbed collapsed walls. Trees grew from what had been windows or doorways, their roots cracking foundations with patient inevitability. Yet even in decay, the buildings spoke of wealth and power. These weren't ordinary structures. The intricate carvings, the precise joins, the sheer scale all suggested something significant had stood here. A palace, perhaps, or a fortress. Alara drew closer, curiosity overriding caution. Her bound hands made clambering over fallen masonry difficult, but she managed, driven by the need to understand what this place had been. The central structure was the largest, walls still partially intact despite centuries of abandonment. She could make out where a great hall had stood, trace the outlines of chambers radiating from it. Whoever had lived here commanded respect and resources. It was on one of those partial walls that she found the first symbol. At first, it seemed mere decoration, the kind commissioned by wealthy families to display status. But as Alara studied it more closely, she recognized intent beyond aesthetics. The symbol consisted of interlocking circles etched deeply into the stone, their precision suggesting ritual over art. Within the circles nested smaller sigils, some she recognized from healing texts her grandmother had shown her, others wholly foreign lunar phases, protective runes, and something else, something that made her skin prickle with unease. She moved along the wall, finding more carvings. They told a story, though she lacked the knowledge to read it fully. A figure that could be wolf or man, surrounded by chains. A woman reaching toward the bound figure, above them both. 3 moon phases meticulously rendered. Beneath it all, words in a script almost familiar, but frustratingly, just out of comprehension. Alara traced the etchings with her bound fingers, trying to decipher their meaning. The stone felt warm under her touch, warmer than it should be given the lack of direct sun. Magic, the word came unbidden to her mind. These weren't mere decorations, but active workings, spells or wards set by someone of considerable power. Ahead, a doorway led to what had been an inner chamber. The roof had long collapsed, but enough walls remained to create a sheltered space. Alara ducked inside, her eyes adjusting to the deeper shadows. There, carved into what had been an altar, she found the message. Unlike the other symbols, this was written in common script, though the language felt archaic, formal in ways modern speech had abandoned. The words were etched deeply, meant to endure, and they had. Moss and lichen partially obscured the text, but Alara brushed it away with careful fingers, revealing the inscription beneath. Forged in betrayal, bound by force. The cure lies within the curse itself. That which was stolen shall be returned when the moon recognizes her mate. The words resonated with something deep in her chest, a recognition she couldn't explain. Alara read them again, parsing each phrase. Summonon had been betrayed. Someone bound by force, and there was a cure, though for what affliction or curse remained unclear. The last line proved most cryptic: when the moon recognizes her mate. More symbols surrounded the text, these better understood from her healing studies. She identified the wolf sigil first, rendered in stylized form yet capturing the animal's essence. Beside it, a woman's silhouette, arms raised as if in supplication or offering. Between them, a third symbol she'd seen in her grandmother's oldest books, always accompanied by whispers of warning and caution. The mate bond she drew in a sharp breath. This was about mating, about the sacred connection that could form between wolves. But the configuration was wrong. Mate bonds were natural, spontaneous. They simply were or weren't. They didn't require rituals or magic, yet this altar spoke of creating, or perhaps restoring, such a bond deliberately. "What is this place?" she whispered to the empty ruins. The wolf appeared so quietly that Alara didn't realize she was no longer alone until she felt the air shift behind her. She whirled, heart in her throat, expecting attack. But the massive creature merely sat at the chamber's edge, watching her with those unsettling golden eyes. In the dimmer light, its fur appeared darker, silver, gray shading to pewter and shadow. This close, she could see details she'd missed before. Scars marked its body, old wounds healed into white lines threading through dense fur. These weren't random injuries, but methodical cuts from weapons, evidence of battles fought and survived. Around its throat, the fur grew in an unusual pattern, as if something had once rested there, a collar or restraint, leaving its mark even after removal. The wolf didn't move toward her. It simply watched, head tilted slightly, in what might be curiosity waiting. "For what?" Alara couldn't guess. "You didn't kill me before," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Why?" No response. Of course not. It was an animal, no matter how intelligent it seemed. Animals didn't speak, didn't comprehend human language. Yet the way the wolf's ears flicked toward her, the focus of its attention suggested understanding beyond instinct. Alara turned back to the altar, keeping the wolf in her peripheral vision. These markings speak of betrayal and binding, of a curse and its cure. She traced the wolf sigil with her bound fingers. Summoning was forced into this form, trapped. "Is that you? Are you the one who was cursed?" The wolf stood, and Alara's muscles tensed for flight, though she knew she'd never outrun it. But it didn't approach. Instead, it moved to the opposite wall, nosing at a stone that looked like any other. It pawed once, twice, then looked back at her, intent clear. "You want me to look there?" The wolf's tail swished once, a gesture that felt distinctly affirmative. Alara approached cautiously, unsure what she'd find. The stone the wolf indicated seemed solid, unremarkable, but when she pressed with her bound hands, she felt the subtle give of a loose block. With effort, she pried it free, revealing a hollow space. Inside, carefully wrapped in oiled cloth that had preserved it over the years, lay a book. Alara extracted it with trembling hands, substantial in weight, the binding clearly expensive. Even after all this time, she unwrapped the cloth, revealing a leather cover embossed with the same symbols she'd seen throughout the ruins. Opening it, the pages proved to be vellum, each covered in neat script, showing the care of someone accustomed to formal writing. A journal, or more accurately, a confession. The first page bore a date that stole Alara's breath 20 years ago, near to the month. Beneath it, a name she recognized from pack history, though unspoken in her lifetime. Serafina Moonshadow. She began to read, and with each line, the world she thought she knew crumbled further. "They came for me at midnight. Warriors bearing the royal seal, but acting on orders I knew to be false. My coven tried to protect me, but we are healers and seers, not fighters. They cut down Kira and Arya before my eyes, their blood staining the sacred circle. The beta stood over their bodies and told me I had a choice, curse the Wolf King, or watch every member of my coven die the same way. The words blurred as Alara's hands shook harder. She forced herself to continue. I was not brave enough to let them all die for principle. I agreed to his terms, to forge a curse that would strip Ronan Silvercrest of his humanity, trapping him in wolf form, driving his mind toward beastly consciousness until nothing of the man remained. But I was not without resistance. I wove the antidote into the curse itself. A mate bond, if true and freely given, could unravel what I was forced to create. I leave these words, these symbols, these clues, praying someone will find them, praying the Wolf King's true mate will come, will recognize him, will choose him despite the monster he has become. The journal continued, detailing the curse in technical terms Alara could only partially grasp, explaining the mechanisms by which a mate bond could undo the magical compulsion. Seraphina had been thorough, leaving instructions alongside her narrative to ensure anyone finding the information would know how to proceed. Alara looked up from the pages to find the wolf watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. Understanding hit with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just any cursed creature. This was the Wolf King, the ruler said to have abandoned his throne 20 years ago. Aldrich had told stories of Ronan Silvercrest's tyranny, of the oppressive rule he had to overthrow. But if this journal spoke true, if Seraphina's confession was real, then everything Alara had been taught was a lie built on betrayal. Ronan, the name emerged almost as a whisper. The wolf's ears pricked forward, its entire body going still in a way that confirmed what she already knew. This was the Wolf King, reduced to beast form by magic wielded under threat of genocide. And Aldrich, the current ruling alpha, was the beta who had orchestrated it all. The scale of the deception staggered Alara. How many years had Aldrich maintained this facade? How many wolves believed the lies about their true king? More pressing, more dangerous. What would Aldrich do if he learned the truth might be uncovered? Ronan approached, and this time Alara didn't flinch. He lowered his massive head, bringing his nose close to her bound wrists. For a moment, she thought he meant to bite, freeing her through violence. Instead, he caught the ropes in his teeth with surprising dexterity and began working the knots loose. It took minutes of patient effort, but eventually the ropes slackened and fell away. Alara rubbed her chafed wrists as relief flooded her with the return of full circulation. She met Ronan's golden eyes, seeing them now with new understanding. "Can you shift?" she asked. "Can you become human again, even briefly?" The way he lowered his gaze, the defeated slump of his shoulders, provided answer enough. Whatever magic bound him held tight. The curse gripped without the mate bond Seraphina described, and he would remain trapped. But the journal named the mate bond as the cure, which meant Ronan's true mate existed somewhere, waiting to be found. Alara's stomach twisted with emotions she didn't want to examine. Disappointment? No, that made no sense. She barely knew this creature, this king, yet something in her recoiled at the thought of him finding another, of watching him restored through someone else's love. Ridiculous. She pushed the feeling aside, focusing on practicalities. "We need to learn more," she said, gesturing to the journal. Seraphina left detailed instructions. If we can find her, she might help, explain what needs to happen. Ronan made a soft sound between a whine and a growl, his attention locking on her with unsettling focus. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned closer until his nose rested against her collarbone. She felt him inhale deeply, scenting her as he had during their first encounter. The reaction was immediate and undeniable. His entire body went rigid, a shudder running from ears to tail when he pulled back. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated with something that looked like shock, recognition, or perhaps desperate hope. Alara felt it too, though she had no name for the sensation. A pull, magnetic and insistent, centering in her chest and radiating outward. Heat unrelated to temperature, a rightness that defied logic. Oh no. She was the mate bond he needed. She was the cure Seraphina had woven into the curse. Chapter 3. Awakening bond. The realization should have brought fear. Instead, Alara felt a strange calm settle over her, as if some part of her soul had been waiting for this discovery. She looked at Ronan, at this creature who was both wolf and king, and saw the same recognition mirrored in his golden eyes. The mate bond wasn't subtle. It tugged at her, insistent as gravity, demanding acknowledgement. "This can't be," she whispered, even as her hand moved unbidden to touch his massive head. His fur was coarser than expected, thick and warm under her fingers. He leaned into the contact, making a sound that was almost human relief. Days passed in the ruins as Alara began to understand the rhythm of Ronan's cursed existence. He remained in wolf form during the day, the beast shape imprisoning him with iron certainty. But as evening approached, she noticed changes. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible shifts in his behavior and demeanor. The first shift happened at dusk on the third day. Ronan had been lying near the altar where Alara sat reading Seraphina's journal, his eyes tracking her movements with that unsettling intelligence. Then his body went rigid, every muscle locking as if seized by an invisible hand. The sound torn from his throat was neither fully animal nor human, but something painfully caught between. "Ronan." Alara dropped the journal and rushed to his side, though she had no idea how to help. His bones were breaking. She could hear them snapping and reshaping, see his limbs twisting at angles that turned her stomach. This bore no resemblance to the shifts she'd witnessed countless times in her pack. Those transformations flowed with natural grace, bodies sliding between forms with practiced ease. This was violence, magic forcing flesh to comply, despite resistance. It lasted an eternity of minutes. When the convulsions finally ceased, a man lay where the wolf had been. Alara held her breath, even in evident pain. Even as his body trembled from the ordeal, Ronan's silver crest was striking. His face held sharp angles softened by full lips currently pressed thin, in discomfort. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, tangled and unkempt. His body bore the marks of 20 years living as prey, lean muscle carved from necessity rather than vanity. Scars crisscrossing his torso and arms in patterns that told stories of survival. He opened his eyes, still that impossible gold. The curse hadn't released him fully, only granting temporary reprieve. "My lady," Ronan rasped, his voice rough from disuse. He tried to push himself up, failed, and tried again with grim determination. Alara moved to help, offering her shoulder for support. He hesitated before accepting, and she felt the exact moment their skin touched. Heat bloomed where they connected. The mate bond recognized and celebrated the link. "How long do you have?" she asked, minutes. He looked at his human hands as if they belonged to a stranger. "Never more than 10. The curse pulls me back. 10 minutes. Barely enough for a few words before the agonizing transformation would steal him again." Alara's chest tightened with frustrated sympathy. Seraphina's journal says, "A mate bond can break the curse fully," she said. "We need to complete it." Ronan's laugh held no humor. "You don't know what you are offering. Omega. A mate bond is sacred, permanent. You'd bind yourself to a beast for life based on words in an ancient book. You are more than a beast." The conviction in her voice surprised them both. "You are the rightful Wolf King if the bond can free you. Then yes, I offer it willingly." He stared at her, those golden eyes searching her face for signs of deception or fear. She met his gaze steadily, letting him see her resolve. "Why?" The word emerged barely above a whisper. "You owe me nothing. Your pack sacrificed you, but you escaped. You could leave, find another territory, start over. Instead, you stay with a cursed creature, offering yourself to restore a king you never knew." Alara considered how to answer. The truth was complex. Layers of emotions she barely understood herself. Part of it was justice, the need to see Aldrich's crimes exposed. Part was the pull of the mate bond itself, that undeniable sense of rightness. But beneath it all was something simpler. "Because you could have killed me and didn't," she said. "Because in that first moment, you protected me when any true beast would have torn me apart. You are still in there, Ronan. Human despite 20 years trapped in wolf form, that deserves a chance at freedom." The shift pulled him back before he could respond. Bones cracked, his body convulsing. Alara held him through it, ignoring his attempts to push her away, refusing to let him endure the pain alone. When the wolf finally emerged, she stayed close, one hand on his shoulder until the tremors subsided. In the days that followed, the pattern repeated. Each evening brought a shift, each lasting slightly longer. 5 minutes became 7, then 10 stretched to 12. Ronan's body was remembering humanity, the mate bond slowly eroding the curse's hold. In his human moments, they talked. He spoke in fragments of his rule before the betrayal, of the kingdom he'd tried to build where strength served justice rather than cruelty, of Aldrich, his beta and friend, smiling as he poisoned the wine with liquid silver, of waking trapped in wolf form, watching through beast eyes as Aldrich spread lies to the pack. They told them I'd become tyrannical, Ronan said one evening, his voice stronger now with more frequent shifts. That I planned to enslave weaker wolves, hoard resources while others starved. All lies built on carefully constructed evidence. When Serafina cursed me, the pack believed I deserved it. What about your intended mate? Alara tried to keep her tone neutral, though jealousy she had no right to feel colored the question. Ronan's expression darkened. There was no intended mate. Aldrich wanted that title for himself, wanted the power that came with it. When I showed no interest in his proposed alliances, when I refused to mate for political gain, he saw his opportunity. They sat in what had been a solarium, stone benches still intact, despite the missing roof. Moonlight illuminated the space, casting dancing shadows over Ronan's scarred shoulders. He wore clothes now, simple garments fashioned from fabric Alara, found in a storage room preserved by some lingering magic. The bond is manifesting physically, he said, pointing to the back of her neck. Can you feel it? Alara touched the spot, feeling raised skin there, not painful, but warm as if a brand rested against her flesh. What does it look like? A crescent moon enclosing your wolf form, the mark of a true mate bond. His fingers hovered near the mark but didn't touch. When the bond is fully completed, mine will appear on you as well, 2 halves of a whole. How do we complete it? The question came out more breathless than she intended. Ronan met her eyes, heat there making her acutely aware of his proximity, of the bare skin visible where his shirt gaped open. The bond requires acknowledgement and acceptance from both. A conscious choice made freely with full understanding of what it means. I've already chosen. I told you I am willing. Words aren't enough. He leaned closer, close enough for her to feel his breath on her cheek. The bond is consummated through physical union, through claiming. Understanding hit her, bringing heat to her face. She'd heard whispers among mated pairs in the pack, understood in abstract terms what the bond required. But facing Ronan, this man who was both stranger and familiar, made the theory suddenly concrete. I am not afraid, she said, surprised to find it true. You should be. But his hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I've been more beast than man for longer than not, Alara. The wolf is never far from the surface. I might hurt you without meaning to. You've had countless chances to hurt me. You chose protection instead. The shift seized him then, stealing the moment. Alara held him through the pain, murmuring comfort as bones broke and reformed. When the wolf emerged, he looked at her with what she could swear was frustrated anger. It took 2 more days for the next attempt. Ronan's human time had extended to nearly 20 minutes, enough for proper conversation. They were discussing Serafina's journal, trying to decipher the more technical passages on breaking the curse, when he went very still. What is it? Alara asked. Your scent has changed. His voice dropped lower, rougher. The bond is strengthening. It is calling to both wolf and man. Heat pooled in her abdomen at the way he looked at her. Predatory, possessive, yearning. She should back away, maintain distance until they understood the bond better. Instead, she leaned closer. Then perhaps we should answer it. Ronan's control visibly frayed, his breathing quickened, pupils dilating until only a rim of gold remained. Alara, if we do this, there is no undoing it. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours, for all our days. Are you sure? She answered by closing the remaining distance between them, pressing her lips to his, in a kiss that started gentle but quickly turned desperate. Ronan made a sound deep in his chest, half growl, half moan, wholly human, as his arms wrapped around her, pulling her against him. The mate bond flared, no longer mere warmth but a blaze. Elara felt it in her blood, in her bones, felt it recognize the exact moment completion approached. Ronan's hands moved to her waist, then lower, his touch reverent despite the urgency. Mine, he breathed against her mouth. Yours, she agreed. The shift seized him at the worst possible moment, his body wrenching away from hers as the curse reasserted control. Elara watched helplessly as he writhed, his cries of pain tearing at her heart. When the wolf finally emerged, he regarded her with what she could swear was frustrated fury. We'll finish this, she promised him, fingers threading through his fur. The curse is weakening. I can feel it. Soon you'll have hours in human form, and the bond can complete what we started. But even as she spoke the comforting words, unease pricked at the base of her skull. They'd been in the ruins for nearly a week. How long before Aldrich sent someone to confirm her death? How long before they were discovered here, vulnerable with the curse's timing? As if summoned by her thoughts, Ronan's ears snapped forward, his entire body tensing with alertness. He moved to their shelter's entrance, nose testing the air, a low growl building in his chest. Summonon was coming. Chapter 4. Threat revealed. The scent carried on the wind raised Ronan's hackles. Elara recognized his defensive stance immediately and moved deeper into the ruined chamber, her back against stone still warm from the afternoon sun. It had been 3 days since the pack had reason to venture this way. Yet someone approached with clear purpose. Ronan positioned himself between Elara and the entrance, his massive form blocking any direct path to her. The growl building in his chest was both warning and promise. She placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the coiled tension in every muscle. How many? She whispered. His ears swiveled, tracking sounds too faint for her human hearing. Perhaps 2 or 3, moving through the forest without attempting stealth. They wanted to be heard, wanted whatever dwelled in these ruins to know they were approaching. Hunters confident in their superiority over prey. The first figure emerged from the tree line, and Elara's stomach sank. She recognized Garrett, Aldrich's beta. His broad shoulders and battle-scarred face were unmistakable even at a distance. Behind him came 2 younger warriors, both carrying spears tipped with silver that glinted in the fading light. They came prepared to kill. Garrett halted at the clearing's edge, his gaze sweeping the ruins before settling on the chamber where Ronan stood guard. His eyes widened fractionally when he spotted Elara alive and apparently unharmed. The Omega lives, Garrett called, his voice carrying the authority of years commanding others. Alpha Aldrich will be relieved. We feared the beast had taken you. Elara stepped forward before Ronan could stop her, though his warning growl told her exactly what he thought of that decision. She kept a hand on his back, fingers buried in thick fur, maintaining the connection as she faced the warriors. I am fine, as you can see. You can return and tell the Alpha his sacrifice was unnecessary. Garrett's expression hardened. You'll come back with us. The pack mourned your loss. Your family wants you restored to them. The lie was transparent. Her family hadn't mourned. They'd celebrated her absence, and Aldrich would never allow her return. Not when she might speak of what she'd discovered in these ruins. The journal. The truth of Ronan's curse. Evidence of Aldrich's betrayal. All of it threatened a carefully constructed deception that had stood for 20 years. I choose to stay here, Elara said, proud of the steadiness in her voice. One of the younger warriors stepped forward, spear raised. You don't have that choice, Omega. You belong to the pack. Ronan's growl erupted with explosive violence, lips peeling back to reveal teeth designed to rend flesh. The warrior stumbled back, nearly dropping his weapon. Even Garrett shifted his weight, reassessing the threat before him. The beast protects her, Garrett observed, his tone thoughtful rather than fearful. Interesting. It should have killed her days ago. Perhaps it is not the mindless creature Aldrich claims. Ilara let the words hang between them, watching reactions. Garrett's face gave nothing away, but the warriors exchanged uneasy glances. They'd been raised on stories of the cursed wolf, a monster that existed only to destroy. Seeing it stand beside an Omega rather than slaughter her challenged everything they believed. Alpha Aldrich will want to hear of this, Garrett said. He'll be very interested to know why the beast spared one of our own. The threat was implicit. Aldrich would come himself, with more warriors, and wouldn't leave until he understood what had changed. Once he learned Ilara had found evidence of his crimes, once he realized the curse might be breaking, he'd do whatever was necessary to eliminate the danger, including killing them both. Tell Aldrich the truth, Ilara said, making a decision that felt inevitable. Tell him I know what he did. Tell him I found Seraphina's journal and understand how he poisoned his wolf king and forced a curse on an innocent man. Tell him his rule is built on betrayal and murder. Silence fell, heavy as stone. The warriors stared at her as if she'd grown a second head, confusion and disbelief warring on their faces. But Garrett went very still, the stillness of a predator deciding whether to strike or retreat. You are speaking madness, he said finally, his voice lower, more dangerous. There is no Wolf King. Ronan Silvercrest abandoned his throne 20 years ago. Ronan Silvercrest stands before you, trapped in wolf form by magic Aldrich compelled through violence. The journal records it all. The poison, the threats, the executions of innocents to force compliance. Your Alpha is a liar and a usurper. Garrett's hand moved to the sword at his waist. Careful, Omega. Such words could be seen as treason. Truth isn't treason. Ilara felt Ronan shift beside her, his body coiling for attack if the warriors advanced. I have proof, the written confession of the witch who cast the curse. Aldrich can't hide behind his lies forever. The beta studied her for a long moment, expression inscrutable. When he spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. You truly believe this creature is the lost king? I know he is. Then you are as cursed as the beast. Garrett turned to the warriors. We return and report what we've found. Alpha Aldrich will decide how to proceed. They withdrew into the forest, moving quickly now that stealth served no purpose. Ilara watched them vanish among the trees, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd just declared war on the most powerful wolf in the kingdom. If Aldrich caught them before the curse fully broke, there would be no mercy, no leniency. As soon as the warriors were out of sight, Ronan's body convulsed. The shift seized him violently and fast, the sound of breaking bones making Ilara flinch despite growing accustomed to the brutality. When he finally emerged in human form, gasping against the pain, she was there to steady him. That was dangerous, he said, once his breathing evened. Aldrich knows now, he'll move against us. He was always going to move against us. At least now he knows we understand his crimes. Ilara helped Ronan sit, noting with concern how the shifts left him increasingly exhausted. The curse was fighting back, resisting the mate bond's erosion of its power. Seraphina, Ronan said, we need to find her. With her testimony, with proof of the coerced curse, the pack might believe us, might turn against Aldrich. Do you remember where her coven dwelled? Ronan's expression twisted with frustration. Fragments, pieces, the curse took so much. But North Mountains, a valley hidden by perpetual mists, where magic runs deep and ancient. 3 days' journey, perhaps 4 if we must stay cautious. 3 or 4 days. But they had no choice. Staying in the ruins meant waiting for Aldrich to return with overwhelming force. At least movement gave them initiative, put them on the path to fully breaking the curse. We leave at dawn, Ilara decided, already planning how to use Aldrich's own lies against him if they encountered his warriors. She knew doubt could be more dangerous than teeth. She squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from the connection. We're stronger together, the bond proves that. He pulled her close, lowering his forehead until it nearly touched hers. The world narrowed to the warmth between them. I've been alone for 20 years, trapped, hunted, growing less human with each passing season. Then you came, offered to a monster as sacrifice. And instead of death, you gave me hope I'd forgotten existed. I won't lose you to Aldrich's fear. The shift seized him before she could respond. As the curse dragged him back to wolf form, his body racked with spasms. Elara held him through it, murmuring what she prayed were true comforts. They would reach Seraphina. They would break the curse. They would expose Aldrich and reclaim what was stolen. They had to. As darkness fully enveloped the ruins, Elara gathered what few possessions they could carry. Seraphina's journal went into a leather satchel she'd found in the storage room. Carefully wrapped in its oiled cloth, she packed dried meat from Ronan's hunts, a water skin, flint, and steel. Everything else they'd find on the road or do without. Ronan watched her preparations with those unsettling golden eyes, intelligence evident in every measured movement. When she finally lay down to sleep, he curled around her, his massive body providing both warmth and protection. The mate bond hummed between them, strengthening with each shared moment. Somewhere in the darkness, Aldrich plotted. Somewhere beyond the forest, warriors prepared for orders. But here, in the ruins of a fallen kingdom, an Omega and her cursed king rested, gathering strength for the battle ahead. I woke before dawn, not from a nightmare, not from light, but from a pure animal alertness, a sense that something was wrong, crawling up my spine like icy claws. Ronan stirred beside me, his massive body tensing, a barely audible growl rumbling in his throat. Even in sleep, he sensed it. The pre-dawn quiet shattered, not with a crash, but with a series of subtle, discordant sounds. A bird calling when it shouldn't, a distant branch snapping, the crack too crisp to be natural. People in the forest, many encircling us. My heart began to pound. Not the frantic hammering of panic, but a heavy, purposeful throb, as if preparing for battle. I sat up silently, careful not to make a sound. Ronan's golden eyes opened in the dark, gleaming with cold light. He was fully awake. Aldrich had moved fast. He hadn't even waited for daylight. Fear tried to seep into my veins like venom, but I pushed it away. This wasn't the time for fear. This was the time to think, to act. Ronan rose, padding silently to our ruins entrance. His huge form was a wall of muscle and fury. He scented the air, ears rotating like radar, catching every nuance. I grabbed the satchel with the journal, slinging it over my shoulder. Seraphina's book was our only weapon, and our greatest vulnerability. I couldn't let it fall into Aldrich's hands. "How many?" I whispered. Ronan glanced back, the message in his eyes clear without words. Too many, far more than the 2 Garrett had brought. He nosed toward the back of the ruins. There, a half-collapsed wall led to a steep slope littered with loose rocks and tangled roots. It wasn't a path, but perhaps an escape. That is when the first torchlight pierced the morning mist, casting flickering shadows on the ancient stones. Then a second, a third. Soon, a ring of orange dots surrounded our hiding place. They were closing in like a pack of hungry jackals. Elara Thorne. A voice sliced through the morning stillness, Aldrich's. His tone dripped with false concern, the paternal cadence he used to address the pack. "Come out. I know you are in there. Don't make this worse." I could feel the vibration in Ronan's body, suppressed rage. 20 years of imprisonment, 20 years of lies. And now, the architect of it all stood outside, calling my name in that nauseating, hypocritical voice. "Don't go out." Ronan's voice echoed in my mind, not actual words, but a clear transmission through the mate bond. A mix of pure emotion and command, danger, trap. Of course I knew it was a trap. "We sent Garrett to fetch you," Aldrich continued, his voice closer now. "He said you'd been bewitched by the beast, that you spoke, disturbing things. I am here to understand, to help you. Help me." He wanted to help me shut my mouth permanently. I crept to the broken wall at the back, peering out carefully. The slope was steep but navigable. If we could slide down while their attention was on the front, We might slip into the forest depths. Ronan, I whispered. We go out the back. He shook his head, then sent a clear thought. They're there too. Me heart sank. Aldrich wouldn't make that mistake. He'd blocked all exits. The torchlight grew nearer. I could hear the warriors moving outside the ruins, smell the mix of sweat, leather, and steel on them. We were trapped. Aldrich's patience seemed to snap. Ilara, I am giving you one last chance. Come out on your own. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to order the ruins burned, turning whatever's inside to ash. He'd set fire to a site holding ancient werewolf history. He'd destroy ancestral legacy to cover his crimes. The man had no limits. Ronan let out a low growl laced with contempt. Coward. The word came through the bond clearly. I looked at Ronan, at the golden fire burning in his eyes. We were cornered. Either wait passively to be smoked out or burned, or a mad idea formed in my mind. Chapter 5. Vows in the wind, the pre-dawn mist cloaked the forest, shaping trees into ghostly silhouettes. Ilara and Ronan departed the ruins in the first faint light of dawn. Ronan leading in wolf form, his steps silent, intimately familiar with the terrain he'd been forced to call home. Ilara followed closely, the satchel slung over her shoulder, the weight of Seraphina's journal both a burden and a hope. They traveled in silence for hours, Ronan choosing paths that barely existed, through dense underbrush and rugged rocky outcrops that would deter the unfamiliar. Ilara could sense his deliberate avoidance of all known pack patrol routes, steering them deeper into the wilderness. By mid-afternoon, Ronan halted before a small cave partially concealed by a waterfall. The cascading water provided a natural barrier, muffling external sounds and masking their trail. Ronan's body convulsed without warning. This shift seemed more agonizing than any before, lasting longer. Ilara steadied him, feeling the spasms of muscle and reshaping bone beneath his straining form. When he finally collapsed into her arms in human shape, sweat matting his hair, his breathing ragged and labored. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, wiping his forehead with her sleeve. Ronan took a moment to find his voice, opening golden eyes filled with exhaustion, but more so with a burning focus. "The curse is fighting the bond's power," he rasped. "It doesn't want to let go, but we're stronger than it." Ilara's voice was unwavering. She could feel it. Each shift deepened their bond. The pull was no longer just a flutter in her chest, but a warm current infused in her blood. Ronan gazed at her, his stare piercing as if seeing into her soul. "Ilara," he whispered, lifting a hand to her cheek. "Do you regret this, being drawn into a war that wasn't yours?" "How could it not be mine?" she countered, covering his hand with hers. "They sacrificed me to you. Aldrich's lies nearly broke the entire pack. And you are the other half of my bond. Your war is my war. I don't even know if I can become the king I once was after the bond completes." Ronan's voice held a vulnerability he never showed in wolf form. 20 years as a beast, it has left its mark. What if the wolf can never be fully tamed? Then I'll tame it with you. Ilara replied without hesitation. "I don't know the king from 20 years ago. I know the one who spared me in the forest, protected me in the ruins, and flees with me now. King or beast, you are my Ronan." The words seemed to dispel the shadows in his eyes like light. He pulled her into his arms fiercely, as if to merge her into his very being. "I thought I'd die alone, forgotten in the dust of time," he murmured into her neck, his voice thick with long suppressed emotion. "You are a miracle I never dared hope for." Amid the waterfall's roar, they shared a kiss. Unlike the desperate, tentative one in the ruins, this was tender and profound, filled with the cherish of rediscovery and promises for the future. The mate bond burned fiercely between them, a surge of energy flowing through their bodies. Ilara could even feel Ronan's form relax in her embrace. The shift's pain soothed in that moment. As night fell, they kindled a small campfire. Ronan's human form held for hours, an unprecedented breakthrough. The bond's power was growing steadily. Seraphina's coven was called the Moon Watchers, Ronan recalled, poking at the fire. They dwell in the Mist Valley, a place hard for outsiders to find. But you, he looked at Alara. Your scent carries herbs and moonlight. They'll recognize you, trust you. Will they help us? They are guardians of peace, but not cowards. A sharpness flashed in Ronan's eyes. When they learn how Aldrich twisted their magic for such crimes, they won't stand idle. They sat side by side in the firelight, sharing their scant dried rations. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but a wordless understanding. Alara, Ronan broke the quiet suddenly. When this is over, when Aldrich is punished, when the throne is reclaimed, what do you want? Alara paused. She'd never considered after. Her life had been a struggle for survival, no luxury for planning desires. She watched the dancing flames, their light reflecting in her clear eyes. I don't know, she answered honestly. Maybe a place to grow my herbs without fear of abandonment. A home. Ronan took her hand, interlacing their fingers. His palm was warm and rough, scarred, yet it brought her unprecedented peace. Then our home will be beside the throne, he vowed solemnly, his golden eyes gleaming with unyielding light in the fire. As long as I am king, you'll be my queen. Your garden will be the most beautiful in the kingdom, and no one will ever harm you again. Ilara's heart raced. Queen. The word felt so distant, yet so real in this moment. She looked into Ronan's resolute gaze, seeing herself reflected there, and suddenly understood what she truly wanted. What I want, she said softly, meeting his eyes, is you. With you, anywhere is home. Ronan's breath hitched. He leaned in, kissing her lips gently, a kiss devoid of passion but filled with pure adoration and profound vows. The mate bond peaked in that instant, a soft silver glow emanating from their touching skin, swirling around them. The crescent mark on Alara's neck became sharper, and below Ronan's collarbone, a corresponding wolf mark slowly appeared, as if etched in silver ink. The bond was complete. Ronan's body shuddered, but not in painful spasm. He closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath when he opened them. Those golden eyes seemed deeper, the wolf's wildness tempered by a calm, regal aura. The curse was broken. I feel it, he whispered, his voice filled with incredulous joy. I can control it. I can shift freely between forms. Just then, urgent footsteps and wolf howls echoed from afar, shattering their peace. Aldrich's pursuers had found them after all, but this time, Ronan didn't revert to a defensive beast. He stood, his human form tall as a pine, the king's presence returning to him. He shielded Alara, his gaze coldly fixed on the direction of the sounds. They're here, Alara said tensely. It doesn't matter. Ronan gripped her hand, imparting steady strength. Tonite. Let them witness what a true wolf king is. Chapter 6. Dawn of Rebirth. Aldrich encircled the cave with his elite warriors. Torchlight banished the darkness, casting Ronan and Alara's figures sharply against the rock walls. When Aldrich saw Ronan standing in human form, his smugness froze, replaced by shock and unmasked terror. Impossible, he cried. The curse. How could the curse? Because lies will always be exposed, usurper. Ronan's voice wasn't loud yet. It reached every warrior's ears, carrying undeniable authority. Everything you stole through betrayal and murder. Tonight, I'll take it back with my own hands. Kill him, Aldrich screamed hoarsely. Him and that Omega witch. They're both traitors. The warriors hesitated. What they saw was a man standing tall, radiating kingly presence, not the bloodthirsty beast they'd been told of. Alara stepped out from behind Ronan, holding Seraphina's journal high. This book records all of Aldrich's crimes, she declared loudly. 20 years ago, he poisoned your king and threatened genocide to force the Moon Watcher's witch to cast the curse. The one you pledge loyalty to is a murderer and a deceiver. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Garrett was among them. He looked at Ronan, then at Aldrich's panicked face, doubt deepening in his eyes. Nonsense. Aldrich drew his sword, charging himself. Kill them, and no one will believe this madness." Ronan met him head on in an instant, his body transformed into the massive silver gray wolf king. But unlike before, his eyes burned with clear intelligence and precise control. He easily dodged Aldrich's strike, swatting away his sword with a paw, then pinning him firmly beneath him. Fangs pressed against his throat. One slight move would end his life. Silence blanketed the forest. All warriors held their breath. Ronan's growl rumbled in Aldrich's ear, low and threatening. Then, he shifted back to human, looming over the sprawled usurper. "Your judgment will be decided by the entire pack," Ronan said coldly. "You'll pay the price for your crimes." Garrett was the first to drop his weapon, kneeling on one knee. "Your Majesty, the Wolf King." He bowed his head, his voice filled with awe and remorse. The other warriors followed, offering their long-overdue loyalty to their true king. 3 months later, the royal city restored its former order and glory. Aldrich's crimes were made public. He was stripped of all power and exiled to the sunless far north. Ronan, as the rightful Wolf King, reclaimed his throne. But beside him, there was always a seat reserved for her. Ilara's garden became the most beautiful sight in the royal city. She tended her herbs under the warm sun, her face wearing a content and serene smile. After handling state affairs, Ronan always came here first, embracing her from behind to share the day's moments. "Still thinking?" He kissed the top of her head, asking softly. "I am thinking." Ilara turned, looking up at him with eyes sparkling with tender love. "That being sacrificed to a beast was the luckiest thing that has ever happened to me." Ronan laughed, the smile banishing the last shadows from his face, warm as spring sunlight. He lowered his head, deeply kissing his queen, his mate, the sole redemption of his life. Fate had entwined 2 shattered souls, beginning with betrayal and sacrifice. But in the end, through each other's support, they found their complete selves, composing an eternal legend of love and redemption.